Okay, so by default, you should get your unit as you see here. The default IP address is 192.168.1.2, and it'll bring you right to the wizard. So right out of the box, you're right in the wizard. So what we'll do is we'll cover the wizard. I'll go over how easy and fast it is to actually install the system through the wizard, and then show you, like basically the idea here is your phone system is up and running after you're out of the wizard, and then once you're out of the wizard, you can do some tinkering with the administrator's login. And then after, I'll also show you what the user has access to, because the user also has access to a few things that he or she can configure. Okay, so right from the wizard, you're brought to the first installation screen, where you'll have the option of selecting a language, so you can actually configure in 3 different languages: English, Spanish, and French. So we'll continue in English for the session. The next page, you'll reach a checklist. As you can see, the checklist here, all these check marks are not optional, so we'll actually have to go through that installation, and then these last 2 are optional. So I'll go through every single one of these regardless, so that you'll be able to see what they all do and what they're about. So the first screen we have here is the administrator's account. So this is just what the administrator will use to log in after we're outside of the wizard. So I'll just put something simple: admin, and we'll get a pop-up saying your password's a little too simple. It gives you some things to follow there to make it safer. The second screen is the set date and time screen. So as you can see, you can't press next until you apply. The phone system obviously requires the proper time, as well as different features requires the proper time. So that's why it's not available to go forward unless you set the time properly. But as you can see, it's already synced with the proper time here. But otherwise, you could set the time manually, as well as a time zone in the country. Okay, so once we press apply here, we'll be able to go forward. The next page is networking, the networking page. So you have your LAN settings, your WAN settings, your default gateway and DNS. The LAN, again, it's 192.168.1.2 for this device by default, but you can change that to whatever you like. It can also act as a DHCP server, so I just wanted to mention that we would suggest you use the Positron device as your DHCP server, as it would be easier to configure your phones with our auto phone provisioning feature. That's not to say that you won't still be able to use auto phone provisioning. It just makes the process a little easier, and we'll go through that so I can show you the difference. So I'll enable it for now. By the way, your LAN would be ports 1, 2, and 3 on your Positron device, and then WAN would be port 4 on your device. Okay, so assuming the network you've plugged in onto port 4 has a DHCP server, you can just auto-discover, and you'll get an IP address automatically, as well as default gateway DNS server. But you can also fill this in manually if you like as well. Okay, the next page is the user list. So here's where you'll specify all the users that you're going to create for your phone system. We have 3 here by default. So analog user 6002 and analog user 6003 would be FXS1 and FX2 respectively on your Positron device, and then 6005, as you can see, is our default SIP user. Okay, you don't need to use these. They're just there by default. So you can add one by one all your users here. As you can see, we don't ask for too much information, but we also have what we call a template here that you can download. So you can see it's just a CSV file, so you can open it in Excel. So I've already downloaded it, so I'll be able to show you here. But this is what it looks like. So basically, it asks you for the same information it would if you're adding them one by one in the phone system. But you're able to actually, like if you do a little homework before going on site to install the phone system, and you have all this information, you can plug it all in. And then once you come back to the once you're there actually installing and you come back to this screen, you can import the table and it'll populate all that information that you have in the CSV file. So we ask for the user's extension number, first name, last name, the language that they would like their voicemail in, because they can actually select English, French, or Spanish for their voicemail, whether you want them to have voicemail or not, so on or off, internal caller ID, external caller ID, whether you would like this user to be in the name directory or not, their email address and cell phone number. Now I'll also go over later why we ask for the email address and cell phone number. It works with a couple of specific features, and I'll show you why after. Okay, so once you have all that information and you're on site and you've already filled out that CSV file, it would be as simple as browsing for it, import, and it would populate the table with all that information you've collected. So it's a real.
Hi, could I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, on you said the 6,000 is a default. Is there any can you do 3 digits, 2 digits?
Yes, absolutely. We suggest to do between 3 and 6 digits, though. But
okay,
it's not restricted to 4.
Okay. All right. No, the reason why I'm asking is because some programs that you can't use certain digits because it interferes with the voicemail or other procedures in the programming.
Yeah, no, I understand. That's why we suggest, like, you still can do 2. We have some customers that do 2, but we suggest to do at least 3 and up. But you're not restricted to 4.
Okay. All right. That's it. You can go on. Thank you.
No problem. Okay, so once you've collected all that information, you import here on the table, populates with all that information you've collected. So it's a very fast, easy way to configure all your user lists quickly. Okay, so we get to the configure phone list. So now that we've specified all the users that we're going to have in this phone system, we have to assign them phones. So this is our auto phone provisioning feature. We also have a template for this so that you can actually do it quickly as we saw with the users. But I'll go through this one manually so you can see how it works, as this is maybe not as straightforward as the other one. So basically how it works is you specify the user. So had we populated that table with a CSV file, we'd have like a huge drop-down list here with all the users that we have to assign phones to. So this is the default one. So let's use that one for example. So we have 6005 who needs a phone assigned. So I have a Yealink here, and it's a T28 Yealink. I actually have the MAC address offhand, so I'll just plug that in. But if you're not aware, you can actually just look at the back of the phone and the MAC address will be there. And on a Yealink, you can also press the OK button and it'll show you the MAC address there as well. So you plug in those 4 pieces of information, so the manufacturer, the model number, the MAC address, and what user is going to use that phone. You save, and that phone will be registered to that user with that very minimal information. The reason for this is because every single phone that we support, we actually have a template for. So like, for example, and I'll show you these templates after so you can understand it a little better, but for example, the T28 here that I'm using has 6 buttons at the top and 10 on the side. So all those buttons can obviously program different things. So you might be wondering, like, how is it just registered like that? Well, we we make sure to register the phone and also assign those keys with commonly used features. Okay, so it can be tinkered later, but the idea is basically to get all those phones registered, get your system up and running, so you're good to go. But then you can, maybe, okay, I don't want necessarily button 3 to be a speed dial for X feature. I can change it to something else. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. We want you to get up and running very quickly, as fast as we can do it for you, and then after you can do your minor tinkering later if you choose to do so. You might actually like what's configured on the phone, but that's how it goes. Okay, so but again, we will cover those templates so I can show you exactly what I mean. The next page here is VoIP lines. So if we want to add a VoIP line, we can do so now. As you can see, if I go 3 down here, I have a provider drop-down list, and we plan to add to this provider drop-down list. So before anybody asks, we definitely want to cover, we definitely want as much coverage as we can in terms of providers in this drop-down list. We want to, continue to add so that our coverage is bigger, and obviously making the installation easier on all of our customers. So, and I'll show you why it makes it easier. Basically, I have a Babytel trunk here, so I can show you with that one. But as soon as I select Babytel, as you can see, it minimizes the information it needs, because it actually does all the configuring for you, and then asks you simply for your username and password for that account. All right, so I'll just call this trunk Babytel. And then the username is actually the DID, for those who might not be familiar with that. And the password. And that's it. So username, password, and that's all that's required for this. Also, if you don't happen to see your provider in this drop-down box, it doesn't mean that that provider won't work with us. Pretty much any SIP provider will work with us. You just might have to do a little more configuring with the settings, with the actual trunk settings. That's all. We won't do them manually for you, or sorry, automatically for you. You'll have to do them manually. So once I save and go next, we hit ring groups. So ring groups might seem a little out of order here, because you would think that we do, incoming call rules before hitting ring groups, but I'll show you why in a second. But let's cover the ring groups. So first, it asks you for an extension. We've had 6000, so let's stick with 6000s. Let's say this one's 6010, and I'll call it the support ring group. Okay, so we have strategy and ring time here. They both work together, and I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's say we start to add some users to our ring group. Now every user that you've created in the system will be available here. Again, we only have the 3 default because I didn't throw in that, I didn't import all those users or create any manually, but otherwise they'd be here in the drop-down box. But as you can see, as soon as you add one, you'll get another drop-down box. You can add another and another. You can also add an external number as well. You'll see you can put in the external number if you want. Okay, so how the ring time and strategy work together is if you have ring all, that means it rings every user for 30 seconds. However, if you have ring in order, it actually rings 6005 for 30 seconds, 6002 for 30 seconds, 6003 for 30 seconds, so on. Okay, and if you'd like to make a ring group and you have a lot of users, you don't want to add them one by one, and you actually want them all in that ring group, you can just press this button and it'll assign every user you've created in the system to that ring group. Okay, so that's a possibility as well. Otherwise, if nobody answers in that ring group, you have a choice. You can either send it to an IVR menu, or you can send it to a voicemail box. Okay, so or hang up the call. let's say we send it to voicemail, the operator's voicemail box if the support team doesn't answer. Okay, so that's it for ring groups. Alright, so we hit incoming call rules next. So I'll show you why now we did ring groups first. It's so that it's actually selectable now in our drop-down box. Okay, so when we're doing incoming call rules from the wizard, it's pretty straightforward. Send all incoming analog calls to, so that is anything coming FXO on the system will go to. Say we send it to the sample IVR. Okay, the sample IVR is actually an IVR we've created for you, a default IVR, if you will, that actually basically the idea is to start you off with something, and then you can build off of that IVR. It's a very basic IVR. It's so that you don't start from scratch, but we'll review the IVR as well so that you can see what I mean. And then send incoming digital calls to. So we created a BabyTel trunk, but any trunks you created would be in this drop-down box as well. And I actually copied my username, which also doubles as the DID, so I'm just pasting it in there. And then here, let's say we say our support ring group. Okay, so anything coming in on the BabyTel trunk with this DID will go to the support ring group. If you have multiple DIDs, you can set them all up, and the boxes will continue to show up for you. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward here. You do have a few other options once we're outside of the wizard. Same thing for outgoing call rules. It'll be pretty straightforward, but you have more options once we're out of the wizard. But again, the idea with the wizard is to make it quick and easy for you. Alright, so next page is outgoing call rules. So the outgoing call rules, we have a caller ID name and number here. And we also have, we ask you how you'd like to route your emergency calls. So your outgoing call rules could be whatever you like, but then, we want this to kind of be separate. So we ask you what's your emergency number and how you'd like to route it. So that's up to you. Now let's say we stick with analog lines. And then here below, as you can see, we've created by default, if you're going out analog lines, you have to dial 9 as a prefix. And that's just because we're anticipating that perhaps you might add a VoIP trunk, which we have. So you might want to differentiate by saying there's no prefix. So users will dial with prefix, and then we put none here, and it'll go out BabyTel. Okay, so then you have dial 9 as a prefix to go out the analog trunks, and then no prefix needs to be dialed to go out the BabyTel. Okay, and also just to mention, you can also edit this one, remove it, change it, whatever you like, and also use BabyTel as a failover even. So then you can see, like if I dial out 9 with a prefix, I try analog lines, I don't get through, it'll fail over to BabyTel, my phone call will still go through. Okay, so again, outgoing calls also pretty straightforward, but I'll go over the outgoing call rules outside of the wizard, and you'll see you have a few more options available to you. Okay, so next page is remote offices. If you recall, this was the first optional setting in our checklist at the beginning. So just to cover it, basically what remote offices is, the example I always use is, let's say we have an office here in Canada and an office in the States as well. If we have a G124 here and let's say a G600 over there, you can actually create a remote office trunk between the two, so that you can actually have inter-office calls between both systems. So you won't actually, you won't actually have to call a number. You just dial by extension, and you'll be able to reach the other side as well. They'd be considered inter-office calls. Okay, so let's say this one's Positron US. That's who I'm trying to connect to. You can select your protocol and the authentication method. You can say username or just IP address. Let's say in our example we say just IP address, so we'd connect using their external IP on their side, and they'd connect using our external IP on our side so that we can establish the trunk together. I'm going to do it here. I'm just going to put in, a dummy IP address, but assuming both sides had created this remote office, we'd actually establish a connection between the both of us. We'd be able to make this interoffice call or interoffice calls. So then here, as you can see just below IP address, you'll see remote branch extension starts with. So our extensions are 6,000, so they start with 6. Let's say theirs are 5. You can say it starts with 5. They have 5,000s followed by 3 digits. Okay, this just gives the system an idea of what extensions you're dialing that'll be interoffice between the two systems. Okay, so that's it for remote offices, and obviously sometimes we have the question of how many remote offices we can do. It obviously it goes up to 9 because there's 9 digits. Okay, so the next option was voicemail. Voicemail is actually, if you don't enable it here, it'll actually be disabled by default. So if in that checkbox, in that checklist, if you had unselected the checkbox for voicemail, it wouldn't be set up. So you'd have to set it up later. Okay, which is not a problem. It's just to mention that if you don't select either remote offices or voicemail, they're not set up. So you see here we have media. Compact Flash here will actually not be an option for you guys. I have an older testing unit which still has Compact Flash. Now we have 2 USB ports only on the newer versions. Okay, so that won't be there. But as you can see, our messages are in brackets here. So if we plug in a USB that's not formatted, in brackets it'll say not formatted, and right next to the refresh button here, you'll have a format button. So you can actually format your USB right in the wizard. So you plug in a USB, it's not formatted, you can press format here, and once it's formatted, you can press refresh. After it's it'll give you a pop-up saying your format's complete. So you press refresh, and that message in brackets will go away, and you'll see your USB as you see here. No messages. So that's ready to go. And then finally, you have the option of sending voicemail to email. If you'd like to do so, you just have to set up a SMTP server. So basically, obviously this would just be used to send out all the voicemails to emails. We actually use just a basic Google account that we have on our phone system. So pretty much anything will work here. Okay, so that's the end of our wizard. As you can see, it took about 20-25 minutes, but considering I was explaining all these things and we went through them slowly and all that, it was pretty quick. So if you can imagine for a second, if you've done your homework and you got all that information for the users, you got all the information for the phones, you'd be able to create those templates, populate the tables pretty quickly. I mean, you can go through this wizard in probably 10 to 15 minutes on a good day. So it actually, and that'll set up your phone system completely. You'll be able to do incoming calls, outgoing calls, interoffice calls between remote PBXs. So all that configuring in very little time is actually pretty good out of this wizard. So I'm going to press apply here. It'll take about 2 minutes. It'll apply all the configuration changes we've done. So if anybody has any questions, or if Patrice, you'd like to add anything, please feel free.
Well, I mean, the one thing I want to add is that you guys saw how quick the wizard is, so it makes it really nice for your technical team to be able to program it, get it ready to go and out the door, so they spend less time at the site, because you could do most of this at your office and take it out, which makes it really nice, and we're always going to be there to help for the first couple. Do you guys have any questions about the wizard at all?
Basically, I have a question about the system. Can you do tenant service?
Tenant service is not really recommended. You can. You're basically saying having more than one business use the same system, correct?
Right, and dual operators and dual messages and stuff like that.
It can be set up that way, but there is no guarantee that if somebody presses the wrong extension, they won't get to the other company.
Okay.
There's no way to set it up.
Yeah, a lot of systems work that way where you can interdial extensions. They're not really...
So I guess the answer would be yes, you could set it up that way, George, because what you would do is just have two different IVRs and have the numbers point to those separate IVRs, and then just separate the extensions out. So company ABC, it goes, extension 1000 to 105, and company, QRS is actually extension 2000 to 205.
Right. Okay. So
the only thing I would say to that. The only thing I would say to that is to just to remember that if you'd like to do something like that, maybe it might be better to potentially go with a G600 to share between companies, as the amount of simultaneous calls, it can handle a hell of a lot more. So you'll never run in. You'll always be safe with a G600 is what I'm saying.
Yes.
With the G124, we have up to 16 simultaneous calls. 17. I know in the future we do. I think the plan is to upgrade the hardware so that it can actually handle more, and perhaps we'll be able to introduce more features with that hardware upgrade. But so that's just to give you a heads up that those simultaneous calls could potentially go up in the future as well. But at the moment, G124 can handle 17 simultaneous calls.
All right. One other question I have is on the trunk between companies or between systems. You said there's only one trunk, so only one call can be made at the same time.
No. This trunk is established. Yes, this trunk is established between both sites, but you can do as many inter-office calls as you'd like.
Oh, okay. So there's no restriction on how many people can be on that same trunk.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other questions? That was a good question, George.
This is Ken. The one question I asked initially, I think this was sent out by SOTEL, was just any system specs, features, phone options, you know what I mean? What, the total, what does the phone system do?
Okay. I'll go back to SOTEL. I mean, the phone system, did you get your email for the partner portal?
I might have. I'm actually setting up a VM server right now for another client.
Okay. So actually,
but I'm sure I got it in my email here. But I was looking more for specifics on the actual phone systems or models that there might be out there. It looks like this is one specific model, features, options, things like that. How it's licensed.
Okay. Well, the good news is, I will tell you, Ken, there are no licensing fees. So that makes it outstanding. So you can add the phones to them without actually costing the customer any extra licensing fees with that. We actually go from like a G124, which is the one he's programming now. The programs itself, like on the G124 and the G1212, are pretty much going to be very similar to it. We also have the 600, which is actually that's for larger companies. They have actually up to 250 endpoints on it.
Mm-hmm.
That takes like a T1 or a PRI. I'm trying to think what else I can give you on the information. Then we have a 320.
No, it's fine. You don't have to do it on the phone here. I was just hoping to actually get specifics sometime. If it's at the partner portal, that's great. I can go hunting it down. If you guys actually have the data sheets that you can send over simply, that would be great. And I don't mind. The only response I got back was I don't mind looking through the wizard. I actually did get to see it. That's the only response I've gotten back. So I was like, okay, you know what I mean?
Well, I do apologize. I will definitely. I have a matrix that's really nice. that
Yeah.
basically just breaks it. It just gives you the simplistic part of it, so you at least see the systems we offer and what they can do.
Okay.
And I will
All right.
get that sent out to you probably within 2 minutes.
The only other question I had on the setup wizard, it's not a big deal. I noticed that when you're setting up the ring groups, there's a fault with the call when that wasn't answered was to hang up. Is there a way to change that so you don't ever make that mistake?
By default, because I mean, if you just select that drop-down box, you can see.
I know, but I'm sure you've done it before. My text, I make mistakes once in a while. I've never. It's like I said, it's not a huge deal. I was just wondering if you can change it. I'd love to tell people, yeah, if you make a ring group and doing it quickly, your default is going to be hang up rather than voicemail.
Yeah, that's a good thought. We can always change it to a voicemail box by default, or send it through the IVR. But yeah, no, that's a good thought. Maybe it's something we can do.
We work on a bunch of phones. I've never, like I said, it's not. I was just wondering if we could flip it. There's somewhere, but yeah, I've never seen one say hang up by default. Typically, it's always voicemail. Then you choose like IVR or another ring group or etc.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. I guess we're just expecting for the whoever's configuring it to actually select whatever they'd like to do. That's all.
Yeah, I would just always, yeah. No, it's fine. I mean, we expect people to be dumb, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually
that's a good point.
Yeah, it is actually a great point, and actually I will send that on because I'm making a list right now, and I will send that up because it can't, it shouldn't be that hard to just change it from hang up down to voicemail or IVR.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yep.
Actually, that was awesome. Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions?
Let me ask, in your programming or your templates, you use Excel.
Yeah.
Excel, I noticed all the stuff that you send out is in Excel. And Excel seems to be a pain in the neck because you either have to print it so that you can't see it. So it's so small to fit in a legal page, or print multiple pages that you got to stick together in order to get the whole picture. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense to do that. Or I don't know how to actually get everything, all your information on one page where I can see it. Because I printed up one of your sheets, and it's your price structure, and I can hardly make out what's on the page. And if you print it out bigger, you wind up getting multiple sheets that you got to paste together.
Are we talking about strictly our data sheets that we have on the products, or for the templates?
Well, on the products also. If you use Excel, like I said, you have a spreadsheet. When you print them out, they come in, they drop off in legal size, unless you have a different type of printer.
Well, what I'll do for you there, Ken, I'm sorry, George, I'm going to actually have Derek, I'll have Derek send it over to you, the pricing sheets on a PDF form, so that'll be all on a 8x10.
Right.
And then as far when you're actually inputting all that information on the phones themselves, you actually don't have to print that out. You just upload it into the system.
Well, generally, I always print out a copy, so I have a copy that I work off or look at. So that's what I'm trying to say is that this copy that I'm going to be printing out is going to be multiple pages that I got to stick together in order to get what Joe Blow has on his telephone set.
Rory, is there a way to actually save that to PDF?
I'm just asking because to me any less the more paper I have, the more stuff gets lost.
Yeah, you can save an Excel to PDF. If you do a save as, you'll see. I don't think you can see it here in the. I don't think you can see, but I actually if you press save as, there's an option to save it as a PDF. Okay,
I'll try that and see if that if you wind up, because like I said, all your pricing, I have it on 8x10 sheets, and I have it lengthwise, and I'm still not getting all the information, and what information I'm getting, you need a pair of binoculars to read it. like the pricing.
Okay. Well,
But
Patrice will
that's
send
just
you over
to be
that.
my system.
So Patrice will send you that over, but also just to show you here, we have you can do a page setup. If you set it up in landscape, you can probably make it a little bigger. If you can see here, there's a percentage size. You can increase the percentage size.
Right.
Make it landscape.
Yeah.
Say okay, and it'll make it quite a bit bigger for you.
Yeah, but then it goes into the next page.
Oh yeah, you can. I'm just giving you an idea. You can probably play with it, bring it down
Yeah.
so that it
I'll try it. I'll try that. See what happens. All right, I'll let you go on that one.
I guess in your other option, you can try to print it out as a PDF too.
Yeah, I'll try. I'll try all of it and see what happens.
Okay.
I just didn't have time to play with it.
Okay, so the other two parts that we'll go through here. Sorry, just one second. Oops, sorry about that. So we have we've gone through the 2 minutes of the configuration. It'll bring you right here to the command center. And actually, if you've changed the IP address, it'll redirect you to your new IP address of whatever you've used. So be sure after that, if let's say you've changed it to 192.168.3 dot something, as you're trying to integrate it into a new network, make sure to plug it into that new network because it'll actually redirect you to the new IP address that you've set in the wizard. And then you'll obviously have to access the phone system from that IP.
Can I ask you a question? If per se you mix up some way, can you plug it into your system directly and get the default IP address at all times? Because like on other systems, if you change the IP address, the default stays there, and you just have to plug into like a voice over IP port or something to that effect, and change your computer to mimic that default IP address, and you get right in, and then you can see what you have.
Yeah, of course you can do that. You can change the IP address on your laptop, whatever you're using, to the same network and access it that way. I'm just saying that if you're following through with your installation, this would be the point where you plug it into the new network that you're trying to integrate it into.
Okay.
But otherwise, yes, you can definitely do that. And we also have an option where if you're not sure what IP address you're on at the moment, you can plug in an analog phone into FXS port 1, dial 1 2 3 4 5 6. Pound ***. It'll dial to the phone system. The phone system will repeat back to you the IP address of your phone system. So that's a feature we have that can also let you know if you're not sure the IP address you're on as well. Okay, so once we get to the command center, from the command center here, you can log in either as the administrator or the user. I'm going to go through both. First, we'll start with the administrator. As you can see, again, you can configure in any language you want. So let's say we chose French here. You see it changes it right away. So everything you continue to configure in French or whatever language you select. Let's go through it in English. The username and password here we set in the wizard, so it's admin. So we'll enter just by pressing that green, the big blue button there. Okay, so the first page you come to is the status page. So I just want to show you everything that we've gone through. You should pretty much see here on the status page. As you can see, our Babytel trunk is registered. The Positron trunk we tried to create with the Positron US that I called it. Obviously wasn't established, as they also have to create one to establish that connection. Had they done that, this would be registered as well, so no worries there. the phone, the phones that you're registering to whatever user will be listed all here. So you'll see the extension, what IP that phone has been assigned, and whether it's registered or not. So that phone that we set up with those 4 simple pieces of information to that user, registered, good to go. Networking table here, you can see your LAN information, your WAN information. So again, port 1, 2, and 3, port 4. Your lines table here would be, I didn't have any lines to plug into the phone system, so obviously this wouldn't say no link. You would have something there. If it does say no link, then there's likely a physical connection issue there. So you can troubleshoot from there. And even these lights will actually change color to green as well. The system table here, you can see a firmware version of the system. So I'll show you why and how we can use that after. Would obviously be for upgrading, but also there's the config version. So that config version is also important at times, as if you're being helped by the support team, we might ask you that information. Uptime is how long the system has been up for. So after we finish the wizard, it configured and reboot the machine. So that's the 13 minutes there. Memory, disk space, and then storage here at the bottom. Again, you won't see compact flash, but our USB that we plugged in, here's all its information. Now there's some space to use here that don't worry, this is not a newly formatted or freshly formatted USB. It actually has some stuff on there for you to see. That's why there's some space taken. I have some CDRs there that we'll be able to look at after, or some info for the CDR. That's why there's some space taken up. Okay, so that's the status page, and it also falls under the status tab. Right under the status page, we have queue status. I'm going to come back to this once we cover the queues. So basically, what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the 3 tabs that are remaining, and then we'll log in as a user as well, so you can see what they have access to. Okay, so under the diagnostics tab, if we hit diagnostics here, we have a couple of tools that are available to the administrator. Under the networking tab, you have the pinging tools. So if you want to see if you're connected to the internet, for example, you can ping out, and you'll either see OK or no response. This is a very simple pinging tool. But then underneath here, we have a network capturing or packet capturing tool. So if you enable it, and then you can select the interface. So LAN is port 1, 2, and 3 again, and then WAN is port 4. Specify an IP address, the protocol that you're sniffing, or all. And then once you've started to monitor and then stop and then download, it actually downloads as a PCAP, so you can open it in Wireshark. Okay, so it's a really good troubleshooting tool here. The console tab here, we have, if you're not aware, our system is Asterisk based, so this is actually what you'll see in the back end of the phone system. So if you press start and stop, it'll actually, the logger is running. You see you have a note there. So when we press stop, you'll see what happened in the back end within that time, which is not too much. There's no activity happening. But if you happen to be having any errors, your phone system, whatever, something's happening, this is a good tool that you have at your disposal. The command tab, if you happen to know your asterisk commands, you can put them in here. So let's say zip show peers, for example. So you can see execute, and then any command that you've executed here will show in the table below. So that's the that's some of the tools available to you. We also have logs for the phone system. So we have a GUI log, a PBX log, a sys log, email log, event log, web server log, and even the DHCP leases if you happen to have us enabled as a DHCP server. So you can see that MAC address that we assigned to user 6005 was given this IP address. Okay. Now these aren't live, but you can refresh, and we'll go to a table that has a little more information. But as you can see here, the latest entry will always be at the top, so you don't have to scroll down to see, what's the latest. It's all the way at the top for you. Okay. So you can download all these logs and open them up on your local PC, laptop, whatever. And also, these logs are also really good if ever you're having any kind of issue and you need the support team's help. We might ask you for one of these logs, and they become very helpful at that point. Okay, so that's it for the diagnostics tab. System tab. There's a few things we didn't get to see in the wizard here. The administrator's account we did. So this was that first page where we specified the username and a password for the administrator in the wizard, but you can change that here if you want to. So you can change the password and username. Next section here is the maintenance section, which we didn't get to see some of these things. The date and time we did, so you can reset anything you'd like in here. However, we didn't get to see a firmware upgrade. So a firmware upgrade. Again, as I mentioned earlier, on the status page, we have what actual firmware it's on. So you can see it's firmware version 2.2.0-0001. Okay, so if we come back to the maintenance section here and go back to the firmware upgrade, if we want to see if we're actually due for an upgrade, if you go to our website here, and you go to the partner portal, so partner portal, and you log in, you'll actually have access to firmwares, language packs, all kinds of goodies in here. Just wait for it to load. There we go. Okay, so language packs and firmware is right here. So language packs would be, the prompts. So, English prompts for the phone system, French prompts for the phone system, Spanish prompts for the phone system. Okay. We support the three, but by default you'll have English. So if you want French or Spanish, you can download them here and upload them, which we'll go through after. But for now, for firmware, we're on a G124, so we can check the version. So this is actually a newer version, so we're on 0001. This is B6, and just to mention, we've started naming it a little differently. This is build 6, so the other one was build 1. Okay, so this is a newer firmware. And if you're unsure, you can actually check the change log, and you'll see what the newest firmware is. And as you can see here, for build 6, we've added 2 new features. So we've added support for all the new Yealink phones, as well as we've added SOTEL as an option for the trunk providers. So if you recall, I said that we'd be adding to that provider's drop-down box where we selected BabyTel. Well, we just added SOTEL, and we'll continue to add more. So if these 2 features, we didn't add a lot to this with this release. So if you can make your decision based on that, and then if you decide to, you can either right-click, copy link location, select HTTP, and then paste the URL upgrade, or you can just simply click it, download it, and then select local, browse for it, upload, and then upgrade. Okay, so you have both options available to you. And just to mention, the firmware upgrade would take about 2 minutes like we saw with the Wizard, and it'll be fully upgraded. It'll keep all the same configuration that you've had set, so not to worry there. Reset to defaults is the next tab here. So we have a soft reset and a hard reset. Both of them will actually delete everything on the phone system and return your system to defaults and bringing you right to the Wizard from scratch. The only difference between the two is the soft reset will actually hold all the backups you've created. Okay, so all these backups I created here will be saved if I do a soft reset. Okay, hard reset, all these backups are gone. On top of everything else, obviously. So to cover backups are pretty straightforward. So what we do is we give you the ability to make a backup as you go. So let's say November 27th backup. It takes literally seconds, and it will actually gather all the configuring that you've done, throw it into a tarball, and that'll be available for download right away. So you can download that locally, and later on, if ever you come to a point where you've configured something you don't like how you configured it or whatever, you just want to go back to what it was before, you can simply press restore, and it'll take about 2 minutes, like our firmware upgrade or the configuring from the Wizard, and it'll restore all the older all the previous information or configuration that you've had before. Okay. And obviously, the other thing you can do is, if you have a very basic configuration, you can save that and restore it on another phone system too. Maybe it's a basic configuration that you like to start to use when you're configuring something. You can exit the Wizard right away, upload that basic configuration, and start from there. See, because you don't actually have to go through the Wizard to configure the phone system. It's just it's just an option for you to make it very simple to configure quickly. But there's all kinds of things you can do. So that's it for backups. Next section is storage. Again, you won't see Compact Flash here, but you have the ability, if you didn't have a USB, let's say when we were doing the Wizard, you didn't have a USB right away, well, you can pass that. You can pass that page, continue configuring, and then add a USB later. Okay, so let's say we added it now. You plug it in the system. You can format the USB and then test it. Make sure it's formatted and good to go. It'll say test successful. If not, otherwise it'll give you a message. Tell you what you need to do. Next tab here is logs. So all those logs that we saw before, some are saved to the system, but some need to be, some you need to specify, like the CDR, the email, the GUI log, and the web server log. You'll have to specify, again, Compact Flash is not an option, but you'll have to specify USB, otherwise it'll go to RAM. Okay, so it's not a big issue if it goes to RAM, but just so you know, obviously, for those who might not be familiar with how it works, if you reset it, just like resetting a computer, it's cleared. So if you had GUI log going to RAM, it'll be deleted completely if you reboot it. Somebody had another line there. That is. There we go. Sorry about that. Everybody still with me?
Yeah, I just want to ask one question. All right, the USB.
Yes.
That you download your backups into it, and everything else winds up in there if you choose to put it there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Okay, so that's basically what the USB is for,
Yeah,
as
it's
an extra storage place instead of putting it in the system itself.
exactly. It gives you a somewhere to store all that information, as well as your recordings. If you want to enable your recordings, it has to be going to USB because obviously recordings, it can build up. Those files can build up depending on how long your phone calls go on for. So we don't want that going to system memory. We want that dedicated for the system, obviously. So for something bigger like recordings or voicemail, we'll ask you to put it on USB or some kind of external device so that it can.
Is there any set size that you request
for USB?
Yeah.
What's
the safe size?
Anything will work. We've had people even put in a terabyte. That's obviously overkill.
Right.
But you could. I'd say, 32 gig stick, 64 gig stick is perfectly fine.
Okay. All right. So that's all I have to ask about that.
Okay.
Oh, the storage on the system.
Mhm.
Basically, shouldn't actually you shouldn't use that much stuff on the system storage itself. Because what I'm trying to say is, can it stop or can it get congested? The system itself, per se.
Yeah, we would definitely suggest that you put, like any of the logs here, it can go to RAM, but we definitely suggest you put it to USB. Obviously, if it is being saved to RAM, it is using memory, so we would suggest to use USB.
Put it outside. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't want the system to start all of a sudden being slow or doing what it's not supposed to do.
Exactly.
Okay.
Okay, so let's just see if our friend is off the other line so I can unmute.
The dial-up, the dial-in. Oop, it just disappeared. Okay.
Yep, sorry about that. Dial in?
Yeah, can you just, you have a specific number to dial into the system?
No, actually what this is for people, obviously there's some locations that still have a hard time getting high-speed internet, believe it or not. We have one or two customers that have needed to use dial-up, so this is if they decide they need to access our system remotely and they have a dial-up connection, this is what this feature is for. Obviously, it's not something that's used on a regular basis, but a couple of customers have used it before. It was requested and it's been used. But basically, we support one modem model that you would plug into your right into your device, right into the USB. And this way you'd actually be able to remotely connect into the system with a dial-up connection. So might not be of interest for you guys, but it's an option. Next section here is the networking section. So we got to see a few things in the wizard. Like here's basically the same exact thing that we saw in the wizard, just a little different of a layout here. So you can edit that information if you like. Otherwise, DHCP, same thing. We got to see this, the pool that's given by default. If you want to change that, you can as well. SMTP, we saw that in the voicemail settings at the end of the wizard. So if ever you want to change the SMTP server you're using to send out your voicemail to email, you do that here. Firewall. So firewall we didn't get to see. We have a few options here for you. So if you want, this gives you the option of blocking or unblocking any of the protocols you see. So I'll give you some examples. Like if you have a remote user, for example, you want to make sure you have SIP/RTP enabled here. Excuse me, a SIP remote user. Same thing for IAX. And then HTTP, if you want to remotely connect into your system, you want to make sure that's enabled here. And then SSH, it might not be for somebody configuring the system. It won't be available to you guys, but the support team at times uses SSH, so we can see what's happening at a lower level in your phone system. So we'll actually, we might use PuTTY to get into the phone system. So we'll need SSH enabled at that point. Okay, and then DMC mode at the top here. So yeah, that's a few we have available in the firewall. Block IP. So this is a nice feature we have. As you know, there's hackers out there that try to get free anything. So how this works is basically, if they have, they'll hammer the system trying to register as a user, and then be able to make long distance calls, obviously, and racking up your phone bill. So how this works is after the number of specified attempts here, so we have 3 by default. So whatever you put here, let's say it's 3. So after 3 failed attempts, it would actually block their IP address, so they wouldn't be able to access the system at all anymore. They'd just be completely blocked. Okay, so no response completely at all from the system after 3 failed attempts. Okay, you would find their IP address here below in the table. They'd be blocked forever unless you delete it. Okay, you can also manually block an IP. So if you see any kind of activity that you're seeing that you're not liking, you can block that IP automatically here, or even block, a network range. And then you have permitted networks as well. So let's say you're going to set up a remote user, for example, and you maybe you plugged in an I instead of an L for the password by accident. Capital. You plugged in a capital I instead of a lowercase L. You're getting 3 failed attempts for password. You might find yourself in the block IP. You can just remove yourself here. But otherwise, you want to try to avoid that situation. Just in case, you can always put in the remote user's external IP address here, so that way they'll never be blocked, just as a just in case kind of thing. So that's how our block IP feature works. So it's a nice feature to have security-wise. SIP/RTP. So these port ranges below here are used basically for, you want to make sure those ports are open for anything standing in between the phone system and the user. So any firewall, you want to make sure those ports are open. And then here the SIP external IP, you can get a SIP external IP simply by clicking the button there, and you'll have your external IP address. Services here, you can shut off services completely. So if you don't want any kind of SSH activity going on your phone system, you can shut that off. PNP and MDNS are actually used for our autophone for the phones that we actually autophone provision. So depending on what phones you're provisioning, you can shut off one or the other, depending if you like to. HTTP port, obviously port 80 by default, but let's say you want it to be 90. Then when you're logging in, you just simply put, :90 and log in like that. So it's an option available to you. We actually have maybe two more sections that might be considered network related. So we have IP routes as well. So if you have different subnets that you're connecting to, you can specify them here in the table. So destination, mask, gateway, and you just add it. and apply. Okay, so that's for different subnets there. And then 3G. We actually support one model, 3G stick. It's a Rogers Nokia CS18. So obviously we'd like to add some more coverage. I think our next target would be from the States, or for the States. AT&T, I believe. I could be mistaken. But we do plan to add more coverage here. But basically how this works is there's actually a SIM card in the USB stick, so you actually be able to connect using 3G, to the internet, so that you can still have your phone system up and running. Like, your SIP trunk will still be up with BabyTel or any other provider for that matter, because you'd still be connected to the internet. So you can use it as a failover. So if ever your internet service provider is down, it can fail over to the 3G stick. You'd still have internet. Okay. Same thing for your telephone lines. The other way you can use it, you don't necessarily have to use it as a failover. You can use it also as you can use it straight up. So let's say we call it a mobile PBX. So let's say you're at a construction site. Obviously, the internet might not be ready and available. Well, you can have the 3G stick plugged in, and you'd have a phone system, a mobile phone system that you'd be able to use on a construction site. The other example we use sometimes, there's the natural disasters that we see all the time. Hurricanes and that. In those cases, a mobile PBX might be useful too. People don't have access to the internet or anything like that, or phone lines or anything. Cell phones are dead. This could be an option for some companies as well. So that's it for 3G. The next section here is CDR. So call detail records. We've actually revamped this section a little bit. So we've given you a few more options. You can actually choose by extension, even down to conferencing, so who's entered the conference, ring groups, and stuff like that. So you'd be able to see the source of the call, the destination of the call, the duration, billable time as well, the disposition, so whether it was answered, not answered, whether it's incoming or outgoing, the date and start time of the call. You can change the amount of entries here. You can even search for a specific call you might be looking for. And you can filter by disposition as well. So if if it was busy, if it was failed, whatever you like. And then at the bottom here, you can see it goes to the next page, depending on how many entries you'd like to see here. And you can also, again, this is not live like the logs, so you can refresh and the newest entry will be at the top. But you can also download it. And I know some companies like to make a report with this stuff, so you can download it, open it in Excel, and filter it however you like and manipulate it how you like, just by downloading it as well. Okay, so those are.
Excuse me, the billable. Sure. It says billable. What does that mean? It's not giving out a price. It's just giving you a time, right?
Yeah, it's the amount of seconds.
Yeah, I'll answer that one, Rory. Billable basically is like, let's say it's for a law firm, so
right.
you can actually see that what number called in and where it went and how long it was on the phone. And so when you actually do billable hours like law firms do, they can actually say, okay, I have 11 minutes to this specific number that I have to bill them for.
Okay, so that's, there's nothing to provide an amount. You have to provide that. All you're providing is it's billable, and actually it takes it on all the calls, right?
Yeah, it takes in on all the calls, and yeah, I mean the application that I would use it for is the one I really like is for lawyers, because they bill for every second of every day when they're on the phone with somebody or they're working on a case.
Right.
So they
right.
can say that I talked to this person for so long, and then charge them accordingly.
Yeah. It's a good idea. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then the other thing it can do, the one thing about this is, it can be broken out by extensions. Correct, Rory?
Yes, it can. And also, just to mention, we can use our call accounting feature with the CDR. So if we enable call accounting, you can actually put more levels into the CDR. So, like perhaps, for example, what employee ID number made this call? From what department did he call from? Anything you like. So we'll go through that feature as well, but it also adds on top of the CDR, so people can actually customize what they like to see in the CDR.
That's a good feature.
Okay, so that's it for CDR. The next page is recordings. Now we haven't made any recordings, but otherwise we'd see it here in the table. But basically you'd be able to download and listen to it from here. You can filter it by date, filter it by date, and you'd be able to see what extension called what number. And you can delete by date, delete all, and that's it basically. And you can also download as well. So you can download to your local machine. I'll also show you, because users also with their own login have access to recordings. So I'll also show you how they see it, so you'll have a better idea, because it's we try to make it a little less techy for them. We try to make it a little more straightforward for them, so it'll be easier to see with the user's login how recordings work. But otherwise, this restart here is just to restart the phone system. So we might ask you to do a system restart sometimes when you configure some features. Like if you have a new USB, we'll ask you to save and restart after you've inserted it and formatted in that, just to establish the new links for the USB. So that's an example. So that's how you restart it. So I'll just take a short little breather here, get a sip of water. If anybody has any questions, please feel free, or if Patrice, you'd like to add anything. And then I'll just cover the PBX tab here and then the user's login, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you, Rory. Well, it sounds like you guys have a lot of questions, which I really do appreciate. But you could see how easy this system really actually does work, and it has a lot of applications for different kind of customers. So it makes it really nice for you to get in there and actually say, okay, well, let's see what kind of features you're looking for. And the system that we're actually going over right now actually does also carry full video conferencing with it, which is outstanding. So for under $3,000, you can have a system with video conferencing, can hold up to 12 people on a conference, which is really nice. Do you guys have any questions about what we've gone over so far, or what do you guys think so far?
Basically, no. Me myself, I think it's pretty good. It's just I would have to, play around with the system to really appreciate what it does.
Yeah, and I definitely,
all
this
the
is good.
things you don't really know. You're listening to what you're talking about, but I'm trying to fit it into my customers' needs, and if it would be easier, because there's a lot of systems out there, and I handle a lot of stuff, and they all basically run the same. Some can do a little bit more than others, depending on the people who are putting out the system. but this seems to be, as far as video conferencing, seems to be good as far as that goes.
Yeah, and it is a great system. I mean, it does have all the bells and whistles that most people are looking for, and it's especially for those smaller clients that really do want the bells and whistles, but they're so expensive. If you go with like Avaya IP, or if you go anywhere near like Cisco or anything like that, you can give them what they're looking for, and they can grow with it. So you don't have to worry about that either, because you can add a phone, they pay for the phone, and then their system's up and running. They don't have to pay for a licensing fee on it.
Yeah. Now, basically, the digital stuff is two pair, or do you have to use IP? Like level 5 cable or Cat 5 cable?
Cat 5 is what we recommend if you're going to go with the IP.
Right.
But we can actually talk offline, because we found a company that can actually go in front of our system that actually works with the Cat 3 cables.
Okay.
And you just buy that piece of equipment, and I don't think it's that inexpensive, and I can have Derek talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But you can use the Cat 3 with it then.
Yeah. No, the reason why I'm asking is just like an IP office and a Avaya. You can go either way. For IP phones, you use the level 5E cables or whatever, and for regular digital phones, you use regular cabling, which sometimes is good because a customer doesn't want to sometimes change his cabling if he don't have to.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's when you get expensive, when you have to run the cables.
Right. That's why I was asking. But it can be, can you use the stations, because like your stations, like the Cisco or the Yearling, I've never dealt with, so I don't know how they operate. I deal with it like NEC, AllWorks, and a few other systems that they either go full IP or they're a hybrid.
Well, ours is actually a hybrid, because you can actually use analog lines with the SIP trunking on ours.
Yeah,
like our
but I mean as far as the stations go.
Okay, Rory, can you answer that one?
Because like NEC, you can use either or. It doesn't make a difference unless you're going IP, IP.
You're talking about the phones themselves?
Yeah, or the cabling for the phones. Are they digital, or are they hybrids where you can mix digitals and IP phones on different cables? Like say if I had a customer that didn't want to change his cabling to level 5 or level 5E, can I run your stations off of like normal level 3 cable if that's what they have?
Well, like I'm not familiar with the system that Patrice mentioned that we can interface with, but it sounds like we could interface with that to accommodate the.
So basically, your system is basically an IP system.
It is.
Okay, that's I'm just trying to get it in my head, what customers, that I, would approach with that. Most customers do have level 5E or level 5 or whatever, but some don't, and some it's more of a course for them to change everything over at this point. So that's why I was asking.
Okay.
Okay, and I'll get you that information over that, that Derek can actually talk to you about and actually get it over so you could see what I'm talking about. All right, well, I guess we could go ahead and move forward and see if we can get this wrapped up.
Okay. Okay, so the next tab here is users. You can see we have users and user templates. So these are the users we got to see in the wizard. But the reason why we ask for very little information from a user is because every user is assigned a user template. Okay. So I'm going to go through user templates and how they are tied into the user, and how you can tie in rules to specific users that are using those templates. Okay, so for example, I can limit a specific group of people to only be able to dial locally. So I'll show you that example. Okay. So we have PTS internal here and PTS external. They're both created by default. This template is used for any internal, should be used for any internal SIP user, and this one for any external, so remote SIP user. Okay, so if we look here, go back to users for a second, and we go to the 6005, we can see he's using template PTS internal because he's an internal user, right? So we go to PTS internal and we take a look. You can see that all this information here is configured for him. So the codecs for video, codec for audio, music on hold, DTMF, whether this template here is remote or not. So that's why internal we set as no and external is set as yes. But then also you can see it has outgoing call rules. Okay, so in the example I said we can limit a specific group. You can limit a group or give access to any group, whatever you like. But in our example, we're saying we're going to limit our group to make local calls only. Okay, so user 6005 is using this template, PTS internal, which uses the outgoing call rules PTS default. So if we go to the outgoing call rules for a second, and we go to PTS default, and we check the rules here, we can see that he basically, given these patterns, he can dial pretty much anything he wants. Okay, and all these patterns are created automatically for you to pretty much have no restrictions. So anybody can make any call. You don't have to worry about patterns to start. If you'd like to start restricting, either what you can do is you can delete all of these, or you can add a new one. So let's say we add a new one, and I call this new outgoing rules. Okay, I save that, and I edit so that I can add rules. So those patterns, they may have seemed like, they might seem maybe even intimidating to start, but honestly, you don't even have to worry about knowing how they work if you don't want to, because we have a pattern generator. So it's as simple as the following. Here, local calls, our area code is 514, so I'll say any 514 number is allowed to be dialed, right? So the number dialed is 514 followed by 7 other digits. Okay, generate, and it creates that pattern for you. So that's what this pattern is saying. Anybody can dial any 514 number. Okay, and then you can describe it as local calls. Okay, and then the group here that you can see will say anybody dialing in this this specific rule have to go over BabyTel, or you can select whatever you want. Let's say we choose BabyTel, and then these messages here are just default recordings that we have, but I'll show you later that you can add anything you like to this drop-down list. But let's say we put please try again later. Okay, so basically now what we did is, if I just go back to users here for a second and go to internal, I'll change this over to new outgoing rules. So now, and I'll save that. So now what we did is 6005 uses PTS internal template. The PTS internal template is allowed to use these dial rules here. And if we go back to those dial rules in there, the dial rules say I can only make local calls, 514 numbers only. Okay, so that's just to give you an idea of how we're giving you the ability to restrict groups to do whatever you like. And even, we can strip digits, we can prepend digits to numbers, and there's all kinds of options that are there for you. But that's just to give you an idea of how we use those user templates. So it's not only to simplify configuring a user, it also gives you the ability to control the user and how they can make calls and that. Okay, so that's user templates. Phone provisioning, we got to see the phone provisioning and how it works, but the phone templates that I spoke about for the T28, well, they're right here, so I'll be able to show you right now. So you can see we have quite a bit of support for a lot of different phones, but for the T28 here, if we view its configuration, as you can see, those 10 keys on the side, as I said, they're assigned more commonly used features. So like the first key is voicemail, second one is starting a recording, stopping a recording, picking up a call, speed dial to pick up a call if you're in a call group, speed dial to desk page, call park, and then these 4 last buttons here would actually monitor the park rooms, okay, with BLF. So they're more commonly used features, but you can always change these. Okay, so let's go back just here to phone provisioning, and if we go into that phone that we actually provisioned and we press configure, you'll see that all of that template was assigned to that phone, right? So you can change it to whatever you like after. So again, the idea was to get that phone registered. We threw in some commonly used features to get it registered quickly for you, and then you can do a little minor tweaking from there. So just trying to get everything up and running and simplify things, make everything easier for the person configuring. Okay, but just to say, if these phone template, you don't actually like this phone template, or there's some things that you like, you can actually copy it, paste it, and tweak a few things, or you can even add a new one, create a new default T28, for example, and that way, going forward, anytime you want to add, because a lot of companies, they use the same phone sometimes, anytime you want to add a new T28, for example, it'll use this template, which will, again, make things a lot easier for you when you're configuring something new. Okay, so that's it for phone templates and how they work with the provisioning. Trunks and lines, we did get to see the trunks and lines in the wizard, but provider templates we didn't get to see. So if you recall, there's that provider drop-down box that I had said that we'll continue to add coverage to, but if you don't want to wait and you have all the information from your provider, you can set that up for yourself, and it'll be available going forward. So I'll show you what I mean. Test provider. Let's say we filled out all that information, we save it. Now anytime going forward we add a new trunk, let's say we're adding a new trunk now, you go to that provider drop-down box, test provider is now there. Okay, so any new provider that you want to add manually, because maybe you have that information, you can add it for yourself. Okay, but otherwise we're very much happy to test with any provider and add it there for you. We just have to get that information, but we'll continue to add to that provider drop-down box. Okay. Incoming call features is we have I'll cover them all, but the first one we'll start with is IVR. And we have a sample IVR here. The sample IVR is what we spoke about. I said that we have a very basic IVR that we start with, right? So we've created this default IVR here for you so that you can actually build from it. So it's you're not building from scratch, basically. Now, just before I start with the sample IVR, I just want to mention that the time frames kind of ties into the IVR, so I'll cover them both at the same time. Okay. So what this IVR does is basically it'll answer the call, it'll wait 2 seconds, so that number specified there is always in seconds, so it waits 2 seconds, and then it has a background recording of IVR welcome. So IVR welcome is another default message, which just says welcome and welcome and thank you for calling. Okay, so it answers the phone, waits 2 seconds, welcome and thank you for calling. And then we have wait extend. So difference between wait and wait extend. Wait extend will actually listen for key presses. So like maybe the person that dialed in, I know what extension I want to reach. I want to dial it right away. A wait extend gives them that ability because the system will actually be listening to key presses while it's playing back any kind of recording or after the recording. Okay, if you use instead of a background, if you use playback, it'll play back that recording, but it won't give them the option to dial. Okay, that'd be the only difference between a background recording and a playback recording. And then the next message here is if you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. We give another wait extend of 3 seconds. They don't respond. We mention again, if you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. Wait 3 seconds, then we hang up. Okay. So obviously you don't want to hang up. You want to build off of this. You want to send the call somewhere if there's no response. Maybe you want to send it to the directory. Maybe you want to send it to the operator. So I'll show you an example of how we can build off of this quickly. Okay. Let's first visit time frames. So if we go into time frames, we can see we have open, Christmas and New Year's. So open is basically open hours of your company. Okay. So you have start time 9 o'clock, end time 5 o'clock. So 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. The mode is permanent. It can also be on demand. I'll mention what the difference is shortly. But let's say we keep it at permanent. So let's come back here. Go back in. Now, we have all these that are selectable here. They're all default recordings, but obviously, not very good for anybody else. It doesn't really work for everybody else. So if you want to customize or create your own recording, all you have to do is go to any phone that's registered to the system, dial *95, and you can record anything you like, and that'll be available to you in the drop-down afterwards. So I'll just do one here, for example.
Please record the message after the beep and end the message by pressing the # sign.
Welcome to Positron, and thank you for calling. Okay, so I just created that recording. So if I go here for a second and I go to Sound Manager, and the IVR tab, here's our recording right at the top. There's the other recordings by default. But basically, this is the extension I called from, and then just a timestamp. So we'll rename that, and we'll call it Welcome to Positron. I forgot an E there. Okay, and now when we go back to the IVR menu, now we have something a little more custom to the company we're creating it for. So now it answers and it says welcome to Positron. We have a wait extend, and then we can throw in another recording there. But first, let's throw in a time-based rule. So I'll show you how the time-based rule works. If you just give me 1 second. Okay, we'll move that up. So these up and down buttons here, you can actually, these will all be executed in the order that you see them. So that's what the up and down button are for. If you want something to be executed before the other, you can just press it up or down. Okay, so we'll just create a label here. And what a label is good for is being able to redirect something somewhere. So you actually have, basically it puts a marker in the IVR. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. Let me just push that up as well. Okay, and then we'll create one more that says go to or leave a voicemail for the operator. Okay, and then we can delete the hang up because we don't want them to hang up. And we'll push this up as well. Up. Up once more. And then finally at the bottom here we can say go to the name directory by last name, let's say. Okay. So now what we did is the call is answered. It goes to a time-based rule. The time-based rule is open. Now open is from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. So the system will check. Is it 9 to 5, Monday to Friday? So that's why before in the wizard we said you have to make sure that we apply this before you being allowed to press the next button. That's why we kind of block it off. That's why it's so important for the phone system, for different features in that. So Monday to Friday, does it fall under Monday to Friday? If yes, then go here. So here you have the option to select wherever you want it to go. So it's the sample IVR. Let's just scroll up for a second here. Sample IVR, yeah. Colon main, so it's the main menu of the IVR. Okay, and then open, so the open label. So it'll go here. Okay, so the call is answered, it waits 2 seconds, it hits the rule. The rule is open Monday to Friday. Does it fall under Monday to Friday, 9 to 5? Yes, so then it comes here. So it skips leave a voicemail, and then it comes to the open label as specified here, and then it continues. Welcome to Positron. If you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. Gives them 3 seconds. If you know the extension of the party you wish to reach, dial it now. Gives them another 3 seconds. If not, we sent them to the name directory so they can find out they can try to find whoever they're trying to contact. Okay, so that's just a quick example of how that works. But otherwise, let's say they call and it falls on a Saturday. So obviously that rule is not followed, right? So it's meaning it's not open. So if it's not open, then we don't execute this below. We pass on to the next one, which is leave a voicemail for the operator. So the operator comes in Monday, sees they have a voicemail, they can forward it off to whoever. Okay, so that was just a quick example of how we can build off of the existing IVR, just to give you an example there. But also, let's say I'll give you one more quick example on how you can also mention, because I mean a lot of people will say, for X press 1, for Y press 2. So I'll give you an example for that. Let's say in our first recording here we said welcome to Positron, and then in our second one we said for support press 1, for sales press 2. So let's say we said that, right? Let's say it was this one. Okay, I know it's called After Hours, but let's say that one's for support press 1, for sales press 2. So right here we go, okay, this is support, so we have to direct it to support somehow. So what we do is we go on the steps and we say go to extension, support ring group. So that's that ring group that we created, right? So now right here we have welcome to Positron because it falls under open hours. Welcome to Positron. For support press 1, for sales press 2. So for one we sent them to the support ring group, and then maybe for 2, let's say 6002 is our support rep. So we can say go to extension 6002 is a support rep. It'll go right to her or him. Okay, so that's how you can branch off the IVR as well. Okay. So those are some quick examples of how you can build off of it instead of trying to build something from scratch. There's a lot of different steps that you have available here. In our manual, we explain every single one of them. Otherwise, we also have, if you check here on our website, we also have application notes. So application notes are something that are more specified on how to configure something specifically. So like we have IVR definitions here, so these give the definitions of all those steps and how to use them. And also, I mean, once you've done a few of these, it's very simple to start creating these and configuring them how you like. But if ever you need to go through one and need a little hands-on experience with the support team, we're more than happy to go through one with you. You can give the support team a call, and we'd be glad to help you out. And that goes for anything for that matter. Okay, so that covers the IVRs and time frames. We have 4 more here. Now, as you can see, the subtabs here are the exact same ones that are available in the list. So if you ever see me hit those subtabs, it's just because I'm going to the next one in the list. Okay. So let's go to Parking Page. So Parking Page, we have you basically you park the call and you can page over the speaker. So you can specify the extension here and name for the parking page. You have a welcome message and the park time. And again, you can record anything you want and it'll be available here for you. You can even upload anything you like. And maybe they have, maybe they have something they've done already that they have on an old existing system or something. Then you'd be able to add that here. And then also the park time can be specified here in seconds, and then the timeout extension. So after this parking time, if it times out, you can send them somewhere. So let's say 6005. So the parking time has expired. We send them right to the operator so they can be dealt with, so that they don't feel like they're being ignored. Okay. Queues are actually you have a lot here that you can play with. If you're familiar with call queues, and also just to show you, these are the groups of the agents you can add. But here, if you give it a name, below here you have plenty of different things. Like I said, you can toy with. So different strategies. So a round robin, ringing all the agent with the least recent calls, fewest calls. You can just randomize how the calls come in, or round robin with memory. A pickup announcement, again, you can put whatever you like. Maximum callers, so maximum amount of callers you'd like to take in that queue. 0 would be unlimited. If key is pressed, so let's say in this announcement you can say, like, if this is an emergency, press whatever you like, and then on that key press you can send them somewhere. So like right now we only have sample IVR available. Maybe we can create another IVR saying, call it Q IVR, and then whatever they press there, you can send it to the Q IVR and direct a call that way, whatever you'd like to do with it with that emergency call, The join when empty, leave when empty is pretty straightforward. Ring each agent, so this isn't specified in seconds, so for 10 seconds, and then the wait time between agents is 1 second. Wrap-up time you might want to change. This is giving them no time to breathe, basically. So as soon as the agent is finished on that call, if there's another call that comes in and it happens to be his or her turn, depending on the strategy, the call will come in. So maybe you want to give them 30 seconds or a minute, 2 minutes between calls at least. ring when on a call. So if an agent's already on a call, you can even select this so that they have to take another call. It's just an option. Reporting hold time, so if you would like to report the hold time. Play in queue, so if a caller is in queue, you can play the music on hold we have here, or even in the audio import, you can also play anything from there. So, an example I can give you is maybe you plug in an iPod into the audio in and you have a playlist. Or maybe you have a recording that you have of some advertising, for the company. You can play that as well. Announce position, so this would announce the position and then announce hold time, so how much time the person's been holding for, and then the timeout. So again, after the timeout, depending on how the queue is used, it'll direct back to an IVR so that the call's not dropped. Okay, so and then for the queues, if you recall, we had queues in the status. So this is the status of the queue. So basically, any agents and callers that are in that queue, this is the status of all queues and agents that are logged into those queues. Now this isn't live, but it'll auto refresh after every 10 seconds. Okay, so every 10 seconds you'll have a refresh. You'll be able to see any queue information, including agents and callers that are logged into the queue or called into the queue in the caller's case. Okay, so that's call queues. I'm going to try to cover a few more things a little quicker here as we're pushing past the time that we specified. But just bear with me, and then we'll cover the user's login, which has very minimal amount of ability to configure a couple of things there, but it'll be good to see. After call queues, we have ring groups, which we saw, but DISA we didn't get to see. So DISA, direct inward system access. Basically, the example I can give you is, let's say you have a sales rep that's on the road, uses his cell phone or her cell phone all the time. This is an easy way to use a phone system to make your calls out using your cell phone in this example. So let's say my cell phone number is that? It's not, but let's say it is. I put a password. Okay. So what happens is with this DISA entry, I can call into the phone system. I can direct DISA however I want. Let's say I call into the phone system. I can put it directly to a DID. So if I call, X DID, it'll direct me right to DISA. If I've dedicated it only for DISA, or maybe I hide it in my IVR. I don't mention it to any customers, but maybe I press 9 to get into DISA, and not to worry, it has a password. So and it also double checks the caller ID. So this is what happens. I'm a sales agent or sales rep on the road, and I need to make a long distance call. It might be long. I don't want to use my cell phone. So what I'll do is I'll use my cell phone to call into the phone system and into DISA, and then DISA will say thanks for calling. What's your password? You'll specify the password 1234, and then it'll hang up. So after it hangs up, after the specified time here, so 60 seconds. In that 60 seconds, it'll double check this caller ID. So this caller ID is me, it's Rory. And it'll say, okay, that caller ID is good. Let's match it up with a password. The password he puts in is good. Okay, after the 60 seconds, the system will call me back and give me dial tone on my cell phone. Okay, so I'll be able to call outside of the phone system, or I'll be able to call with the phone system from my cell phone. Okay, so that's how DISA works. Ring groups we got to see, so if you want to add any more or edit the existing, you can. Call handling. So I explained how outgoing call rules worked. Incoming call rules, we got to see that in the wizard. So this was the outcome of what we did. So if you recall, send all incoming analog calls to, so that's here. The rules is all goes to the sample IVR, like we put. And then send incoming BabyTel, so that digital drop-down box that we saw on the wizard, which was BabyTel, we said go to the support ring group, so 6010 is the support ring group. And you can add more rules if maybe you have more DIDs. You can add other DIDs and where you want to direct that call to. So you can do that here as well. And then call accounting. So call accounting. If you recall, I said we can add call accounting to the CDR to kind of customize it for yourself. Maybe add some more levels or layers that you would like. So if you see here, it says to enable call accounting, go to the PBX settings. So we'll just do that quickly. It should be in call handling at the bottom. Save that and get back over there. So call accounting. How it works, I'll do that exact example that I had mentioned earlier. So let's say you name it. I'll just call it call accounting. Okay. Let's say we use 2 levels, and we say the first one is, and you'll click codes here. You'll add. Okay. The first one is let's say what department, right? So we'll say 1, 2, 3 is the support team's department. Okay. So back right here, we'll add a message with *95. We'll say what department. Okay, let's say this welcome is what department. And then the second one we said is what's your employee ID. Okay, so employee ID maybe is just put something random, but let's say it's that. And that's me. Okay, so what's your employee ID? So what's your department? What's your employee ID? So I'll make a call, and now it'll ask me what department you're calling from. I plug it in. I say, it says, what's your employee ID? I plug it in. Call goes out. I make my call. I talk. I do my thing. But now, you'll see in the CDR, if I go to the CDR, it'll also mention, if I want it to, it'll mention the department and the employee ID that made that call. Okay, so just something you can add on if you like. So that's call accounting. Excuse me. Conference bridge. So these are conference rooms. We have 2 here by default. So if I edit one, I'll just show you here. You have the administrator's PIN code, the regular PIN code. Obviously, the administrator has a few more things he or she can do. You can kick a user, for example. Announce callers here if that's enabled. Basically what happens is before you enter the conference, it'll say who's calling. It'll record you, so it'll say who's calling. I'll say Rory. And then it'll announce me as I'm coming in. It'll say Rory is entering the conference. If you're the only person in conference, this is what will play. Okay, so you can select whatever you like. Now, as Patrice mentioned, this is a G124, but we also have the G124V. If we had the V, the V stands for video. This G124 can still do point-to-point video, but the G124V can actually do video conferencing. You would see those conference rooms here as well for video. So that's it for conference bridges. Remote offices. So we got to see remote offices. So if you want to add more, edit the existing, you can do so here. Sound manager. The sound manager here, we have the music on hold. So we have a very basic music on hold file here. That's there by default, so that's what plays for music on hold, which is it's a loop of some classical music, but it's a good loop. You can't really tell. Otherwise, you can obviously add whatever you like there. The star 95, you can continuously add as many recordings as you like in here. And then the language. So language support. These are all the prompts. So if you want any prompts for Spanish or French, you'd have to add that support. Now, just to mention, you have a global language and you have individual user languages. So what I mean by that is you can have the system globally be in English, have English prompts, but then maybe me myself, I'm from Quebec, Canada. I'm not French myself, but if I happen to be, I can, and I wanted my voicemail to be in French, I can select French prompts, so it would actually answer you in French. Or maybe more of my customers I deal with are actually Spanish, so maybe I want to, accommodate them and make my voicemail Spanish. So you have that possibility. Now to add it, it's pretty simple. Again, you go to our partner portal here, where I mentioned before. You just download that. Download any one of them you'd like the support for. Now I already downloaded French, so I'll show you with French. As you can see here, it's downloaded already, but it'll come as a .zip file, so you just unzip it, and then you'll see a tar.gz file. Don't go any further. Just grab that file, upload it, and then it'll show up in a second here. Boom, you have French support. So it's that quick, and now it's selectable at a global level or individual users. So I'll show you what that means. If you go to PBX settings, now you can see I have French here that I can select from my entire phone system. Okay, so it obviously works the same way for Spanish. So just before we touch on the settings and then the user, I just want to mention quickly what the phone book is here. It's just basically a very simple feature that allows basically it's kind of like a speed dial feature for any common customer you might call. So let's say I call Walmart all the time, for example. We put in Walmart, their external number, the number I call maybe is 1-800. Okay, it's not that. I'm just putting any random number, and then you can assign them actually an extension. Okay, so let's say 6100. Now, when anybody calls 6100, it'll actually dial this external number here. Okay, so it's just a very simple way of making a phone book that everybody can remember and assign specific numbers to those extensions. The PBX settings, so there's a couple things we'll go through here. The general tab, it just, system name, the country settings, language settings, and then maximum user and conference rooms here. You don't have a maximum number of conference rooms or users. This kind of puts a cap on it just for your own. It's just for your way of controlling, basically, because this system specifically does 17 simultaneous calls, right? So this gives you a method of control so that you could kind of control the number of simultaneous calls. We're trying to give you some form of control over that. So you can up those maximum amount of users and conference rooms as you wish, but just try to keep in mind that the amount of simultaneous calls is what you'll have to try to remember. This is our attempt to give you some form of control over that. Call handling here. So call handling, we have all these different features that have extensions that you can dial to use. So we have blind transfer, warm transfer, pickup if you're in a group, voicemail extension, external voicemail extension, that IP address extension that I said was pound ***, so it's actually not specified by default. I thought it was, so I said pound ***, so let's say it's that. So again, you plug in an analog phone, pound ***, it'll play back what your IP address is. We use the *95 feature, which was recording whatever you like. Spy extension is actually anybody who would like to spy on a user without them knowing, they can do so. Now, obviously, for legal purposes, you'll have to mention it. You know, this call may be monitored or recorded, some kind of warning of that nature. But maybe an example could be like maybe the president wants to listen in on a phone call to see how the operator handles an important customer. You know, because maybe that customer there was a few complaints of somebody being rude. So that president can now basically call this extension specified here. Let's say it's 777. It'll ask him or her for the password, and then after, once the password's correct, they'll say, okay, what extension would you like to monitor? Then they can listen in on the phone call. Okay, so that's another feature. Audio in extension. This is just you dial this in with any phone, and you'll be able to listen in on what's playing in the audio in. So if you want to make sure your playlist is still playing on your iPod, for example, you can do that using that. This is the park room extension. So if you want to park anybody in our park rooms, the rooms range from 701 to 720, and it'll play back which room it's parked in once you dial 700, and park it automatically, obviously. This is the specified park time in seconds. Otherwise, the call is redirected from where it came. Then we have a cell phone prefix and voicemail prefix. Let's say this is 8. So if you recall, I said I'd mention Y. We ask the users for their cell phone numbers. So this prefix here is Y. Basically, let's say I want to get in touch with the operator, 6005. He or she is on lunch. I still need to get in touch with them immediately. I can dial 6005. That'll dial their cell phone number without me actually knowing what the number is. Same thing for voicemail. If you want to leave a voicemail right away instead of getting in touch with them, you just want to leave a voicemail right away. This will direct you right to their voicemail box if you use that prefix. This is just a BLF prefix. If you notice, if you're monitoring any calls, and you can see one you'd like to pick up, you just press *7. It'll pick up that call, and then that call accounting. That's what we enabled to use the feature. Okay. Now this might be a lot to remember, especially for users, like users having to remember all of these to use for all their features. So what we did is when a user logs in, they actually have access to this. We call it a kind of a cheat sheet. They obviously can't edit any of these, but they'll be able to see what they are in real time. So like if ever the administrator changes one of these things and like, hey, why can't I access my voicemail? And they see, oh, okay, the administrator changed the extension, that's all. Now it's 6055. So they'd be able to see that. And for anything else, maybe they can't memorize for that matter. Paging. So we have another form of paging. This is multicast paging. This is basically gives you the ability to do multicast pages for all the phones or by group. So I'll show you how it works. So let's say you want to do it by group, *81. Okay. Okay. So if you go to phone provisioning here, and I just go to the provision phone I have here. See *81, I want him to be assigned to that group. So now anytime, let's say we add 3 phones to *81 and it's everybody from the support team. So now anytime the boss pages *81, it'll contact all the people from the support team. Okay, so it'll page all 3 of them. Say, hey, could you come to my office? I want to speak to you guys. So that's an example of how to use our multicast paging. You have some SIP settings here. So like SIP video, if you want it enabled, as I mentioned, we do point-to-point point-to-point calls. The SIP trunk registration timer, sometimes you might have to change that depending on the provider, but this 120 should be good. The call bit rate for video, and a few other things here as well. Voicemail. So there's some settings you can have here for voicemail. Some of the maximum amount of greeting time, the minimum amount of greeting time, the minimum message time, and then the maximum message time. So the greeting time is like, the person making the recording, saying, thanks for calling, please leave a message, and so on. And then 1 second, anything less than 1 second that's recorded will actually be deleted because obviously they didn't leave anything. So it'll be deleted automatically for them. And callers also have a maximum of 60 seconds or whatever you specify here. Maximum amount of calls at one time that'll save on the system is 15. You can change that if you like. Exit on key press. So these two below, you can set anything you like. So like 0 will bring me to the operator, and maybe star will send me to the support ring group. So you can mention that in your greeting, saying, if you like to leave me a message, you can do so. Or if it's support related, you can press star now. Or if it's an emergency, press 0. And so that's just an option. Allow users to review. Basically, they can review their message and they have a chance to delete it and re-record if they like. Say message, caller ID, and duration. So that plays back to me, myself, as a person listening to my voicemail messages. It'll say, hey, you have a caller from caller ID X, duration Y. Okay, duration of the call. Send messages by email only. So if you select this, it'll use, again, if you recall, I mentioned, I'll explain why a user is asked for their email address. So if you select this, this will actually send the messages only by email. So they won't be able to look up the messages on their phone anymore, but they'll be able to, listen to it from their phone, because it'll get emailed to them, and it'll actually have a wave recording, so they'll be able to listen to the message. Or from PC, for that matter, anywhere else they can access their email. But they also have the option of, if it's not selected, they can still get voicemail to email, and they just have the option of whether they want to attach the recording or not. So they can get an email message saying, hey, you have a recording, might want to go check it out. So just kind of a heads up email, or they can get an email saying, hey, you have a recording and here's the attachment if you want to listen to it right away. Okay. So users will have it in their email. They can get it sent to their email. They'll obviously have it in their actual voicemail box unless this is selected. And they also have the ability of listening to it from their user's login. So recordings is pretty straightforward. We do on-demand recordings. So they're never recording, or if you select on-demand, they'll have to press #8 to start the recording, #9 to stop it. This feature we're in the middle of changing for the G600, I believe. So the G600 will be able to support always recording, so records all calls. So I'd just like to mention that. But otherwise, like on a G124, for example, it'll be on demand. Will be the option you have. Okay, so I'm just going to log out because that just about covers the administrator's login, and then I'll log in with the user just so you guys get to see what they have here. and then we'll wrap it up. If you have any questions, we'll be able to go over them. Okay, so to log in, I'm sorry, not sure if you saw here, but all you have to do is use your extension and then your voicemail password. So your voicemail password actually doubles as your login as well. So everybody's voicemail password by default is 1234. So before I do anything as the administrator, you might want to tell all the users, hey, go and change that, because everybody's voicemail password or login password, which it doubles as, is the same by default, 1234. So they can change that up here. Okay. So the first tab they have is hotkeys. So this is that cheat sheet I spoke about. So they have access to see what all those features, what their extensions are, so they'd be able to use them if they forgot. They have access to the status page as well. So the status page, we gave them some information here, not as much when we're talking the user, but basically the idea was sometimes maybe the administrator's not there, he's on vacation, or he or she's on vacation, he or she is absent for whatever reason. We wanted to give the user access to this too, because maybe they have something that's not working on their phone system. They want to call the support team and still want to have it fixed that day. This is so they can have some kind of information they can report back. So like you have their networking information, their trunk information. So like, if it says unknown here and they're saying, hey, we can't make inter-office calls with Positron in the U.S., then we know why. We can tackle it from there and go forward. The user information, it's their own user information. So if they have a problem with their own phone, they can say, oh, I'm not registered, what's going on? And we can move forward from there. Lines, if you see no link here, obviously there's a physical issue, so we know that. Or if maybe there's any bug fixes or new features that are added on firmwares, we'd be able to tell by the firmware seen here. If they're noticing that their recordings aren't recording, or voicemail boxes are full for some reason, they can't record any further. Maybe you see here that the USB is full, so you can just swap out the USB, for example. So just to give you some ideas of how this might help with the support team. So that was the idea behind giving them some information from the status page. Otherwise, they have voicemail here, so they'd be able to see and listen to voicemails from here. Even all these folders that they have access to here are the same folders that they would listen to if they dial with the phone. So they can do all the same things from here. So they can move it to a specific folder, or even forward the voicemail. So hey, this voicemail is not for me. Let me forward it off to who it belongs to. So they can do that right from here, and they can listen to it from here, delete it from here, whatever they like. So same thing with recordings. They can listen to their recordings from here. So if you remember, I said it's a little different. You'd get to see a bit of a different layout as a user, so you might understand it a little better. So how it works is you can actually filter it by day, day, month, year, and so filter it by date, apply, and then it'll populate the table with all of my recordings on that specific day that I put in. It's the same for the administrator, but obviously the difference between the two is I'd be able to see my own recordings, whereas the administrator can see all the system's recordings. So then they can delete specific entries, or delete all of them on a specific day, or delete them all together. All right, so finally we got settings. There's a few settings they can set here. If they have the email address that they'd like to change, if that's changed, or if they'd like to put one in that they hadn't set before, they can do so. Voicemail time zone. So this, to give you an example, again, if I'm traveling, I want to have the correct time played back in my voicemail box when I'm traveling. Depending on where I am, I can select where I am. so I'd have the correct time played back. Language, again, if you want to have a different language played back and play back those prompts in their voicemail box, they can, or with their voicemail box, they can. Ring time, so this is specified in seconds, so how long the extension rings for, or their own personal extension rings for. And then finally, they have two settings they can apply here: forwarding a call or using follow me. If they decide to forward a call, they can forward it to an external number, or they can select any user in the drop-down list here. Okay, so they also have two options here to ring the extension before forwarding. So you ring my extension, I'm not answering, forward it off to whatever number specified here. And here's the ring time, that how long it would ring for in seconds before doing so. And then finally, for forwarding, they have forward external only, so they can forward only external calls. Anybody calling internally will still go to my extension and then to my voicemail. But if it's an external call, I'll I know it's important. It's going to get forwarded off to whoever can take care of it, whoever I specify. And then the difference between a follow me and a forwarding is a follow me will actually continue trying another number. So like it'll try the first number. If they don't answer, it'll try a second number. And that's how that works. So you specify the first number, how long you'd like that first number to ring for, and then the second number, how long you'd like that number to ring for. And then if in the end a forward or follow me isn't answered, regardless of which one's selected, you can put if it's not answered, either the call is hung up or you can go to my voicemail box. Okay, so those are the options available and the things available to the user when he or she logs into their own interface. And that wraps up the training. Sorry it went over our time a little bit. We started a bit late, but I apologize for that. So if anybody has any questions, or Patrice, you'd like to mention anything, please feel free.
All right. Well, actually, I know it's very in-depth, and the one thing about it is it seems a little daunting when you first go through it the way Rory does, because he goes step by step by step, but he gives you a lot of great information, which is outstanding. But all this is actually going to be on the partner portal, so if you run into a situation that you forgot what he said, you can always go to the partner portal and listen to it, or you can look it up on our installation guide and our administration guide. We do have a hot button that shows for the end user itself, so they can actually look and see what they can do with their voicemail, and we're working on, there'll be an end user guide on there shortly as well. But does anybody have any questions about this at all?
I just have one. To follow me, does that ring the two numbers that you put in there simultaneously, or does it ring one at a time?
It will ring one at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. Just
so
curious.
If you have it like ringing to your extension, then you have it ringing to your cell phone, then you want to ring into your house phone, whichever one you want to designate, it'll ring first, and then it'll ring the second one if you don't answer that one.
Okay. And if you don't answer it, it'll go to the second one. And if that's not answered, it'll go back to wherever you set it, to your voicemail. Okay. All right. Just getting it straight in my head.
It's a lot of information, George, and I do understand that. But as you can see, we spent about 2.5 hours on this. And we already got through an entire system, and that's actually teaching somebody. So once you actually get the ins and out of it, it goes really quick to program, 20 phones. You
Right.
can have it completely programmed in, under probably an hour and a half. And
Right.
have it set up exactly how you want. Which is nice. You can go to the end user and actually talk to them and show them how it works instead of spending all your time in the closet trying to figure out how to get it all set up like in the old days.
Yeah, one last question. The video, point-to-point video, you don't need anything special, or do you need something special to make that operate besides having two the same systems and phones on either side?
No, you mean, do you have any other piece of equipment that you have to buy? No, it actually comes with each of our systems. So as long as they have some kind of a soft phone or Brio or a phone that has video conferencing on it, a video phone, they can actually use the video point-to-point.
Okay. All right.
Which is nice. It does save money nowadays. People don't want to send their people out to travel because it costs so much with the hotel room. They pay them a per diem for lunch and dinner and breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
And you can actually get a whole group of people or even just one-on-one together and actually, show them just like we just did, show you exactly what you want to show them instead of actually just talking about it.
Right.
So do you have any other questions at all?
That's it for me.
All right. Well, I'd like to thank you guys all for joining us on this day before Thanksgiving. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call. Our technical team is really good about, helping people out when the first installs, and also any questions you might have afterwards. Pick up the phone and call us. We'll answer it. We'll get it answered if I don't know it or if Derek doesn't know it. And I'm sure Derek will be giving you a call probably next week sometime, George, to just go over and see what you thought of it.
Yeah. Yep. I will speak with him when he calls. I know he sent me an email, but I didn't look at it yet.
I think it was a PDF.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I told him to send you the PDF.
Oh, good. Okay. This way I get a look at it. It's just probably me on the way I do things, because I'm not the brightest kid when it comes to different programs and how to get the things on one page and stuff like that.
Oh. Believe me, I understand that. I call him all the time and tell him ask him to do things for me. He's a wizard that way.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Gotta have somebody who knows what they're doing, right?
That's exactly right. And as long as we know who they are, we know how to get it done.
That's it.
All right. Well, then, I really do thank you very much, and I hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
Thank you, and thank you for this class.
Oh, you're welcome. And if you have any other questions, don't hesitate to call us.
I will.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Okay. Have a good one.
You too.